I'm 79 years old, and I need to tell you something that might make you uncomfortable. I loved my wife more than anything in this world. I still do. But 14 years ago, she left me. And here's the part that keeps me up at night, the part that's haunted me through every one of these last 5,000 days. I don't blame her. Not even a little bit. You see, I spent 37 years thinking that love was enough. That as long as I loved Sarah, as long as I never cheated, never lied, never did anything wrong, our marriage would last forever. I was so arrogantly confident in this belief that I stopped paying attention. And by the time I realized what I'd done, by the time I finally saw what was right in front of me, it was too late. I'm making this video because I'm running out of time, and I see couples everywhere making the same mistake I made. Young couples, middle-aged couples, even couples in their 60s who think they've made it, who think they're safe, and nobody's telling them the truth. Not the romantic comedies, not the wedding vows, not the anniversary cards that pile up year after year. Everyone's so focused on love, on finding it, keeping it, celebrating it, that they've forgotten something crucial. Love doesn't protect a marriage. You do. And I didn't. The day Sarah left, it was a Tuesday in October. I remember because the leaves were turning, and I'd been thinking we should rake the yard that weekend. I walked into our house at 6:47 p.m. I'll never forget the time on the kitchen clock, with Chinese food from that place on Market Street. Kung Pao chicken and spring rolls, her favorites, or what used to be her favorites. I'd stopped asking if her preferences had changed. She was sitting at the kitchen table with 2 suitcases beside her. Not the big ones we'd taken to California that one time. Small ones. Like she'd carefully considered what pieces of our 37 years together she could carry. She wasn't crying. That's what broke something in me. After 37 years together, I expected tears. I expected drama, anger, something I could fight against. But she just looked tired, exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. The kind of tired that settles into your bones after years of drowning and no one noticing you're underwater. She said, "Mark, I can't do this anymore." And I said stupidly, "Do what?" Because I genuinely didn't know. That's how blind I'd been. My wife had been disappearing right next to me for years, fading like an old photograph left in the sun, and I never even noticed she was gone. She said she'd tried to tell me. She'd tried 100 different ways, 1,000 different ways. But I was always too busy, too distracted, too confident that everything was fine. Too certain that because I loved her, because I'd never betrayed her, because I came home every night, our marriage was solid. And you know what the worst part is? I loved her through all of it. Every single day. I would have told you our marriage was rock solid. I would have bet my life on it. I would have stood up at my granddaughter's wedding someday and given advice about lasting love. I was wrong about everything. Let me tell you what I thought marriage was. I thought marriage was about not screwing up. Don't cheat. Don't lie. Don't forget anniversaries. Show up to family events. Pay the bills on time. Be faithful. Provide. As long as you don't do the bad things, you're good, right? The marriage takes care of itself. It's a promise you make once, and that promise holds the whole structure together forever. That's the lie that destroyed my marriage. That's the lie that cost me the woman I loved more than my own life. Because while I was busy not cheating, not lying, not doing anything dramatically wrong, I was also not protecting what we had. I was treating our marriage like a plant that doesn't need water. Like it would just keep growing on its own because we'd planted it once, said vows, signed papers, built a life. Here's what I didn't understand then, what I understand with brutal clarity now. Marriage isn't a destination you arrive at on your wedding day. It's a garden you tend every single day. Every single day. And if you stop tending it, if you start taking it for granted, weeds grow, slowly. So slowly you don't even notice. Until one day you look around and realize the garden is dead, and you're standing in a wasteland, and the woman you love is packing suitcases. Sarah tried to tell me. God, she tried. About 8 years before she left, she said she felt like we were roommates, not partners, not lovers, not friends, just 2 people who happened to live in the same house and occasionally occupied the same rooms. I laughed it off. I actually laughed. I said, "We've been married 29 years. This is what marriage looks like. this is what it becomes. I said it like the slow death of intimacy and connection was just normal, expected, something to accept rather than fight against, something that happened to everyone, and we were no different. She asked me to go to counseling. This was maybe 7 years before she left. She'd found a therapist, had already called, had already checked our insurance. All I had to do was say yes. Just say yes and show up. I said we didn't need it. We're fine, I told her. We don't fight. We're not like those couples who need therapy. We're not broken. I was so proud of the fact that we didn't fight. So proud that our marriage was peaceful. I didn't realize we didn't fight because she'd stopped trying to reach me. I didn't realize that silence isn't always peace. Sometimes it's resignation. Sometimes it's the sound of someone giving up. 5 years before she left, she planned a weekend away, just the two of us. She found this bed and breakfast 3 hours north, this place she'd researched for weeks. She'd looked at photos, read reviews, chosen the room with the fireplace. She made reservations 6 months in advance. She arranged for her sister to watch our dog. She bought a new dress. She was so excited. I remember seeing her face when she told me about it. This flash of hope, like maybe this trip would fix something, would bring us back to who we used to be. And I canceled it 2 days before we were supposed to leave. Something came up at work, some client meeting that probably didn't even happen. Some crisis that I can't even remember now because it didn't matter. It never mattered. But I made it matter more than she did. I told her we'd reschedule. I promised. I swore we'd go the next month or the month after that. We never did. And she never asked again. That light in her eyes went out, and she never tried to plan anything like that again. I'd killed something in her with my cancellation, with my broken promise, and I didn't even notice it dying. I see it now. 14 years too late, I see everything. I see all the moments she reached out and I wasn't there. Not because I was with another woman, not because I didn't care, but because I was complacent. Because I thought she'd always be there. Because I thought love meant the marriage was safe, that vows meant she was locked in, that history meant she couldn't leave. But love and marriage aren't the same thing. I understand that now. Love is a feeling. Marriage is a structure that you build together, day by day, moment by moment. And structures need maintenance. They need attention. They need constant protection from the things that erode them. Time, routine, neglect, assumption, pride. I loved Sarah, but I didn't protect our marriage from my own neglect. I didn't protect it from my complacency. I didn't protect it from myself. Let me tell you what kills marriages. It's not the big dramatic things. It's not affairs or betrayals, though those definitely do damage. It's the slow accumulation of small abandonments. The conversations you don't have. The moments you're physically present but mentally absent. The nights you choose your phone over your partner. The times they try to connect and you're too tired, too busy, too distracted to notice they're reaching out. Death by 1,000 paper cuts. Death by 1,000 missed moments. Death by 1,000 times you chose something, anything else. I can count maybe a dozen times in our last 5 years together when Sarah really tried to talk to me, really tried to connect, really tried to reach through the wall I didn't even know I'd built between us. And every single time I was half listening, checking my email, thinking about work, watching TV, making it clear through my body language and my scattered attention that whatever she was saying wasn't quite important enough to pull me fully into the moment. She stopped trying, and I didn't notice when she stopped trying. That's the thing that wakes me up at 3 a.m, drenched in sweat, gasping like I'm drowning. I didn't notice when my wife gave up on reaching me. I didn't notice when the woman I'd promised to love and cherish decided I wasn't worth the effort anymore. I just thought things were peaceful, comfortable. I thought we'd settled into that long-term marriage rhythm where you don't need to talk as much because you know each other so well, where silence is companionable, not empty. But our silence wasn't companionable. It was the silence of a graveyard, of something that had died and been buried, and I was the only one who didn't know there'd been a funeral. Here's what I want you to understand, what I need you to hear before it's too late for you. I never stopped loving Sarah, not for one single day. If you'd asked me the morning she left, if you'd asked me the night before, If you'd asked me any day of those 37 years if I loved my wife, I would have said yes without hesitation. Without doubt. I meant my wedding vows. I was faithful. I provided. I showed up. I thought I was a good husband. But I didn't protect the marriage. I didn't protect it from routine, from complacency, from my assumption that it would always be there, that she would always be there. I didn't protect it from the slow drift that happens when you stop paying attention, when you stop choosing each other, when you stop doing the work. And without protection, love isn't enough. Love is just a word you say. It's just a feeling you have. It means nothing if you don't back it up with action, with presence, with daily choice. There's a moment about 18 months before Sarah left that I think about constantly. That plays in my mind like a movie I can't turn off. A scene I'm forced to watch over and over in the dark hours before dawn. We were having dinner, this rare night where neither of us had anywhere to be, nothing scheduled, no TV show we were following. Just us at the table with pasta and salad and a bottle of wine we'd gotten as a gift and never opened. She asked me about my day, and I gave her the usual surface-level answer. Fine. Busy. The Peterson account is taking forever. Then I asked about her day, and she started to tell me something. Something about a conversation with her mother that had upset her. Something about feeling stuck in her career, about feeling invisible, about wondering if this was all there was. I could tell it mattered to her. I could see it in her face, in the way she was leaning forward, in the way her hands were moving as she talked. This was one of those moments where she was inviting me in, where she was saying, without saying it directly, I need you to see me right now. I need you to be here with me. I need you. And I picked up my phone. I don't even remember why. Some notification. Some email that felt urgent in the moment, but that I couldn't tell you about now if my life depended on it. I looked down. I read whatever it was. I maybe even responded. 30 seconds, maybe a minute. When I looked back up, she'd stopped talking. Her hands were still. Her face was closed. She'd changed the subject. Asked if I wanted more wine. Said something about the weather. The door closed. Right there at that table, over pasta neither of us finished. The door closed, and I didn't even notice it shutting. I didn't hear the lock click. I didn't see her walk away from me emotionally, even though she was still sitting 2 feet across from me. That wasn't the only moment. It was one of hundreds, thousands. But that's the one I see most clearly. That's the one that represents all the others. That's the moment I'd go back to if I could, if time worked that way, if regret could buy you a second chance. I'd put the phone down, face down, I'd turn it off, I'd reach across the table and take her hand. I'd say, tell me everything. I'm here, I'm listening, I see you. I'd ask questions, I'd lean in, I'd stay there with her until she felt heard, seen, known. But I didn't. I picked up my phone, and she closed the door, and that door never opened again. After she left, I found a journal in her nightstand. She'd given me permission to come to the house, our house, though it wasn't ours anymore. It was hers, had always been more hers than mine because she'd made it a home and I just lived in it. She said I could take anything I wanted, pictures, books, whatever. I found this notebook tucked under some books she'd been reading, small, leather-bound. I almost didn't read it. It felt like a violation, like I'd already violated enough. But something told me I needed to understand what had happened. I needed to see what I'd been blind to. The entries went back 9 years. Not daily entries, just occasional thoughts, moments she felt compelled to record. And as I read through them, sitting on the floor of what used to be our bedroom, I watched my wife fall out of love with me in slow motion. Not because I did anything terrible, but because I did nothing at all. There was an entry from 8 years ago. Tried to tell Mark about what Mom said about my career today, about how she said I'd wasted my potential. He was on his phone. I don't think he heard me. Sometimes I feel like I'm disappearing, like I'm fading away and no one notices, not even the man who promised to love me for the rest of my life. 7 years ago. Asked Mark to go to counseling today. He said we don't need it. He said we're fine, but we're not fine. I'm not fine. I'm drowning. How do you tell someone you're drowning when they refuse to see the water? 6 years ago. Made reservations for a weekend away. I'm nervous but excited. Maybe this will help us reconnect. Maybe we can remember what it felt like when we first met. when he used to look at me like I was the most interesting person in the world, when he used to touch my face and tell me I was beautiful, when he used to see me. 5.5 years ago, he canceled the trip. Again, work. It's always work. I know it's important. I know I should be supportive. I know I'm supposed to be the understanding wife, but I'm so angry. And under the anger, I'm heartbroken. Because this isn't about the trip. It's about him choosing everything else over me, over us. And I don't know how to make him see it. I don't know how to make him care. 4 years ago, I don't think he sees me anymore. I could probably walk through the house naked and he'd just ask if I'd seen the remote. I cut my hair today, 8 inches. I've had long hair our entire marriage. He didn't notice, didn't say a word. I sat at dinner across from him and he didn't notice I'd changed. How can you not notice when someone changes? How can you not see? 3 years ago, I'm lonely. How can you be lonely when you're married? When you sleep next to someone every night? When you share a life and a home and a history? But I am. I'm so lonely I can't breathe sometimes. I lie awake at night next to him, and I feel more alone than I did when I was single. At least then the loneliness made sense. This doesn't make sense. This isn't what I signed up for. This isn't what love is supposed to feel like. 2 years ago, I think I'm done. I don't want to be. I don't want this marriage to fail. I don't want to be a statistic. I don't want to hurt him. But I'm so tired of being invisible, so tired of trying. Maybe I deserve to be seen. Maybe I deserve someone who's actually present when we're together. Maybe I deserve more than this half-life we're living. 1 year ago, I'm leaving. I've decided. I don't know when, but I'm leaving. I can't do this anymore. I can't keep dying slowly, piece by piece, day by day. I love him. God help me. I still love him. But I love myself more now. I love myself enough to leave. I love myself enough to want more, to need more, and he can't give me more. He won't, and I'm done waiting for him to wake up. I read that entire journal in one sitting. 4 hours. Every word. Some entries I read twice, 3 times. And with each entry, I watched the slow death of something I thought was invincible. I watched my wife try to reach me, and I watched myself fail to reach back, fail to even see her reaching. Not because I stopped loving her, because I stopped showing up, because I stopped seeing her, because I took her for granted, the way you take the sun for granted, assuming it'll always rise, never thinking about what happens if one day it doesn't. I called her after I read it. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely dial. She answered on the 3rd ring. I said, "I read your journal. I'm so sorry. Sarah, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I didn't see. Please, please, can we try again? I'll do better. I swear I'll do better." There was a long silence. Then she said very gently, "Mark, you didn't know because you didn't look. And I can't spend the rest of my life begging to be seen by someone who won't see me. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But it's too late." She was right. It was too late. Let me tell you what happened after she left. I fell apart. Completely fell apart. Lost 15 pounds in a month. Couldn't sleep. Couldn't eat. Went to work and sat at my desk staring at nothing. My boss suggested I take some time off. My kids, grown, with families of their own, took turns calling me, checking on me, trying to help me understand what had happened. I became obsessed with understanding what went wrong. How I'd been so blind. How I'd lost something so precious without even realizing it was slipping away. I read books on marriage, dozens of them. I went to therapy, the therapy I'd refused to go to when it might have saved us. Every Tuesday for 3 years, I sat in Dr. Morrison's office and dissected my failed marriage, trying to understand where it had gone wrong, trying to understand myself. I talked to divorced friends, married friends, anyone who would help me understand how I'd been so blind. And here's what I learned. What I wish someone had told me when I was 40, 50, 60. I'm not unique. The mistake I made is everywhere. It's epidemic. I see it in restaurants. Couples sitting across from each other, both on their phones, not speaking, not looking at each other, together, but utterly alone. I see it in my friends' marriages. Good people who love each other but who've stopped protecting the relationship, who've let it become this background thing they don't tend to anymore. I see it in my own son's marriage, and it terrifies me. Terrifies me because I see him making the same mistakes I made, and when I try to tell him, warn him, he dismisses it the way I would have dismissed it at his age. Because we've been sold this idea that love conquers all. That if you find the right person and love them enough, everything else falls into place. That marriage is a destination. You get there, and then you're done. You've achieved it, you can relax. But that's not how it works. Love is the foundation, yes, but you have to build on it. Every single day, every single moment. You have to tend to it, protect it, choose it, fight for it. My friend James is 74 now. He's on his second marriage. His first one ended the same way mine did, not with a bang, but with a whimper. His wife of 33 years just left, packed her things and walked out. He was devastated. Couldn't understand it. Kept saying to me, over beers at the bar where we'd meet, but I loved her. I never cheated. I was a good husband. I provided. I was faithful. What more did she want? I didn't have an answer for him then. I do now. James is remarried now, met Rachel 5 years ago, and I watch him with her, and it's completely different. Not because he loves her more than he loved his first wife, but because he learned the lesson I learned too late. He protects the marriage. When Rachel talks, he puts his phone down. Face down, out of reach. He makes eye contact. He asks follow-up questions. He's actually present, actually there. When she suggests a date night, he doesn't say, maybe next week, or let me see how work goes. He says, let me check my calendar right now, and he makes it happen. When they disagree, and they do disagree, they're not pretending everything's perfect. He doesn't shut down or get defensive. He leans in. He fights for understanding, not for winning. He fights to stay connected, not to be right. Last month, James told me Rachel had said something that scared her at work. Something a colleague had said that made her question her value, her worth, her contribution. Not a huge thing, not a crisis, just a comment that stuck with her, that wormed its way into her head. James left work early, came home. They talked for 3 hours, just talked. Sat on their porch and talked while the sun set and the evening got cold. He said it was one of the most important afternoons of his marriage. Nothing dramatic happened. No crisis was solved. No decision was made. But Rachel knew, deep in her bones, that she mattered to him, that he'd show up, that when she needed him, he'd be there, fully there. That's protection. That's what I didn't do. Here's what I wish I'd understood when Sarah and I were still together, when there was still time, when the garden wasn't dead yet. Marriage has enemies, real enemies. And if you don't actively defend against them, they'll destroy what you have as surely as fire destroys a house. The first enemy is routine. You get comfortable. You stop dating, stop flirting, stop trying to impress each other. You think, we're married now. I can relax. I don't have to try anymore. She's committed. She's not going anywhere. And slowly, imperceptibly, you become roommates who share a bed. You become logistics partners who coordinate schedules and pay bills. You stop being lovers. You stop being friends. You just coexist. The second enemy is assumption. You assume they know you love them. You assume they know they're important to you. You assume the marriage is fine because you're not fighting. But assumption is lazy. Assumption is arrogant. Love requires demonstration. Love requires proof. I love you means nothing if your actions say but not enough to pay attention to you. The third enemy is distraction. Work, kids, hobbies, phones, TV, friends, obligations, responsibilities. All of these things compete for your attention. And if you're not careful, if you're not vigilant, your spouse gets whatever's left over at the end of the day. The scraps. The exhausted version of you who can barely form sentences, who falls asleep on the couch, who has nothing left to give. The fourth enemy is complacency. You stop asking questions. Stop being curious. You think you know everything about your partner, so you stop looking, stop discovering. You think you've mapped every corner of their soul, so you stop exploring. But people change. We all change. If you're not paying attention, you wake up one day married to a stranger. Or you wake up one day and they're gone. The fifth enemy is pride. You don't want to admit there's a problem. Don't want to go to counseling because that's for couples who are struggling and you're fine. You don't want to have the hard conversations because they're uncomfortable, and it's easier to pretend everything's okay. It's easier to keep your head down and hope it all works out than to face the truth that something is dying and you're the one killing it. I let all 5 of these enemies into my marriage. I opened the door, I invited them in, I welcomed them, and they ate away at what Sarah and I had built. 37 years of history, of inside jokes, of shared memories, of a life built together, until there was nothing left worth saving. Until Sarah looked at me and saw a stranger. Until I looked at myself and saw a man who'd destroyed the best thing in his life through neglect. Sarah's been gone for 14 years now. 14 years. That's a long time to live with regret. A long time to replay every moment, every choice, every time you picked up your phone instead of looking at your wife. She's with someone else now. Guy named David. They've been together for 11 years. They got married 3 years ago. I wasn't invited to the wedding. Our kids went, told me about it afterward, said it was beautiful, small, intimate, said Sarah looked happy. I've seen them together a few times over the years. You can't avoid it in a city this size. The first time was about a year after she left. I was at the grocery store, the one we used to shop at together every Sunday morning. I turned a corner and there they were, David and Sarah, debating between two kinds of pasta sauce like it was the most important decision in the world. I was going to turn around, leave before they saw me, but Sarah spotted me. Our eyes met, and instead of looking away, instead of pretending she hadn't seen me, she came over. She introduced me to David. He seemed nice, genuinely nice, friendly, warm. He shook my hand, looked me in the eye, said he'd heard a lot about me, and I watched how he was with her. How he touched the small of her back when they talked. How he listened when she spoke. His whole body turned toward her like she was the only person in the store. How he laughed at something she said, this genuine, delighted laugh, and how her face lit up in response. How he looked at her the way I used to look at her back when we were young, back before I stopped seeing her. I watched her with him, and I saw something I hadn't seen in years. She looked alive, present, happy. Not the polite, surface-level happiness she'd had with me toward the end, that smile that never reached her eyes. Real happiness, deep happiness. The kind that comes from being truly seen, truly known, truly chosen every day. And I realized, standing there in the pasta aisle with my cart half full and my heart completely empty, this could have been us. This should have been us. David isn't doing anything I couldn't have done. He's not smarter than me. He's not better looking. He's not richer or funnier or more successful. He's just paying attention. He's just showing up. He's just protecting what they have. I went home that day and I cried. Really cried. Ugly cried. The kind of crying that comes from somewhere deep in your chest, that shakes your whole body, that leaves you exhausted and hollow. I cried for what I'd lost, for what I'd thrown away, for the life I could have had if I'd just paid attention, if I'd just done the work, if I just loved her better. I'm not telling you this story because I want sympathy. I don't. I made my choices. I lived with my head down for 37 years, assuming everything was fine, and I lost the woman I loved because of it. I destroyed the best thing in my life, through negligence, through laziness, through arrogance. I'm telling you this because I see you making the same mistakes. I see you everywhere. At restaurants, at the park, at the grocery store, on the street. Couples who are together but not together. Who are physically present but emotionally absent. Who are slowly, imperceptibly drifting apart and don't even know it yet. I see you at dinner with your spouse, both of you on your phones, not speaking, not looking at each other. I see you canceling date nights because something came up, because work is busy, because you're tired, because there's always next week. I see you responding to your partner's bids for connection with half attention and distracted nods, with and that's nice, dear, while you scroll through your phone. I see you assuming that because you're not fighting, everything's fine. That because you come home every night, you're present. That because you said I love you last week, you don't need to show it today. I see you putting your marriage at the bottom of your priority list because it feels stable, secure, like it'll always be there. Like it's the foundation you can take for granted while you focus on everything else, work, kids, hobbies, friends, obligations, and I want to grab you by the shoulders and shake you until your teeth rattle and scream. It won't always be there. Love doesn't protect a marriage from neglect. Nothing does. You're killing what you have and you don't even know it yet. Your spouse is trying to reach you right now. Maybe not dramatically. Maybe not with big conversations or ultimatums or marriage counseling demands. but in small ways. Small bids for connection that you're probably missing because you're distracted, busy, tired, or convinced everything's fine. They're telling you about their day, and you're half listening while you check your email. They're suggesting you spend time together, and you're saying, maybe later, or we'll see, or let me get through this busy period first. They're trying to have a real conversation, and you're checking your phone, checking the score, checking anything except their face. They're reaching out, trying to touch you emotionally, and you're not quite reaching back. Not because you don't love them, but because you're not paying attention. And every time that happens, the distance grows. Just a little. Just enough that you don't notice. A millimeter here, a centimeter there. Until one day, and that day comes faster than you think, trust me, you look up and they're gone. Not just physically, though that might happen too, but emotionally, spiritually. They've stopped trying. They've given up on being seen by you. They've accepted that you'll never really be there, never really be present, never really choose them over everything else. And when that happens, love doesn't matter anymore. History doesn't matter. Shared memories don't matter. The life you built together doesn't matter. Because love without presence is just a word. It's just a feeling you claim to have. It means nothing if you don't demonstrate it, if you don't prove it, if you don't show up for it every single day. Here's what I would do differently if I could go back. If I could travel through time and find my 40-year-old self, my 50-year-old self, my 60-year-old self. If I could grab that man and make him understand before it was too late. I would put my phone in a drawer during dinner. Every night, no exceptions. Not I just need to check this one thing, not this might be important. In a drawer, off, gone. Because nothing on that phone is more important than the woman sitting across from you. Nothing. I would ask Sarah real questions. Not how was your day in that automatic, not really listening way. But what's been on your mind lately? What do you need that you're not getting? How are you really doing? What are you afraid of? What are you dreaming about? Real questions that invite real answers. Questions that say, I see you as a full, complex human being, not just as my wife. I would go to counseling the first time she suggested it, not because we were in crisis, not because we were broken, but because I wanted to invest in us, because I wanted to understand her better, because I wanted to learn how to love her better. I'd go weekly if she wanted. I'd go and I'd do the work, and I'd take it seriously instead of treating it like an admission of failure. I would plan date nights, real date nights, not just dinner at the same place we always go to, and protect them like they were the most important appointments of my week. Actually, I'd protect them more than business meetings, more than golf games, more than anything else. Because they would be more important. My marriage would be the most important thing in my life, and I'd treat it that way. I would notice when she went quiet, when she stopped reaching out, when she stopped trying. And instead of being relieved that things were peaceful, instead of enjoying the lack of conflict, I would be alarmed, terrified. I would lean in. I would ask what's wrong. I would fight for connection instead of accepting distance. I would touch her more. Not sexually, though that too, God, that too. But just touch. Her hand when we're watching TV. Her shoulder when I walk past her in the kitchen. Her face when she's talking to me about something that matters. Small, constant reminders that I see her, that she exists in my world as more than furniture, more than background, more than a given. I would say I love you less and I see you more, because anyone can say they love you. Those words are cheap, easy, meaningless without action behind them. But being seen, being truly seen and known and chosen over and over, day after day, that's what keeps a marriage alive. That's what Sarah needed, and I didn't give her. I would treat our relationship like it was fragile, because it is. Every relationship is, no matter how long you've been together, no matter how much history you have. They all require care, attention, protection, maintenance. The second you start taking them for granted is the second they start dying. And they die so quietly you don't even hear it happening. But I can't go back. Time doesn't work that way. Regret doesn't buy you second chances. I can only sit here at 79, alone in a house that's too quiet, in a life that feels too empty, and watch my wife, my ex-wife, be happy with someone else. Someone who's doing all the things I should have done. someone who learned the lessons I didn't learn until it was too late. So let me ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly. Not out loud, not to me, but to yourself. In your heart, where you can't lie, where you can't make excuses. When was the last time you were fully present with your partner? Not just in the same room, but actually there? Engaged, curious, connected, looking them in the eye, listening to not just their words, but what's underneath the words. When was the last time you had a real conversation? Not logistics about groceries and schedules and whose turn it is to take out the trash, but a real conversation about dreams, fears, hopes, disappointments, the stuff that matters, the stuff that makes you human. When was the last time you touched them without it being a precursor to sex? Just touched them because you wanted to feel connected, because you wanted to remind them they're real to you. When was the last time you looked at them, really looked at them, and noticed something new, something you hadn't seen before? When was the last time you were curious about them instead of assuming you know everything? When was the last time they tried to reach you and you reached back, fully, completely, without distraction? If you're struggling to answer these questions, you're in danger. Maybe not today, maybe not next month, maybe not next year, but eventually. Because marriages don't die in a day. They don't even die in a year. They die slowly, quietly, invisibly, from 1,000 small moments of disconnection, from 1,000 times you chose something else, from 1,000 opportunities to show up that you missed because you were busy or tired or distracted or convinced everything was fine. And the cruelest part, the absolutely cruelest part, you won't see it happening. You'll think everything's fine right up until the moment your spouse is sitting at the kitchen table with suitcases packed. Just like I did. I'm not saying this to scare you. Actually, that's a lie. I am saying this to scare you, because you should be scared. You should be terrified of losing what you have. That fear, not paralyzing fear, but motivating fear, should drive you to protect it, to tend to it, to fight for it every single day. Because here's the truth that took me 37 years and a divorce and 14 years of crushing loneliness to learn. Love is not enough. Marriage needs more than love. It needs attention, intention, daily, conscious choice. It needs you to show up over and over, even when it's inconvenient, especially when it's inconvenient, especially when you're tired, especially when work is busy, especially when there are 100 other things demanding your attention. You think you're tired now? You think you don't have time now? You think you're busy now? Wait until you're divorced. Wait until you're dividing up 37 years of life into cardboard boxes, deciding who gets the wedding china and who gets the photo albums. Wait until you're sitting alone in an apartment that doesn't feel like home, eating takeout in front of the TV, realizing you threw away the best thing in your life because you couldn't be bothered to put your phone down during dinner, because you couldn't be bothered to really listen, because you couldn't be bothered to show up. That kind of tired is permanent. That kind of exhaustion doesn't go away with sleep. That kind of regret doesn't fade with time. I'm 79 years old, and it hurts as much today as it did 14 years ago when she walked out that door. I had dinner with Sarah last month. Her idea. She called me out of the blue, said she'd been thinking about me, wanted to check in, said she wanted closure, wanted us to be able to be friendly since we're both in the same city, since our kids and grandkids overlap, since we're going to keep running into each other. We met at Mario's, this Italian place we used to go to when we were dating, back when I'd hold her hand across the table and tell her about my dreams and listen to hers, back when I'd look at her and think I was the luckiest man alive, back when I knew how to see her. She looked good, really good, happy in a way that was visible, in her eyes, her smile, the way she moved. She told me about her life, about David, about the trips they're planning to Italy next month, about her garden, about the book club she joined, about our grandkids and how much time she gets to spend with them now that she's retired. And she asked about me, genuinely asked, genuinely cared, genuinely listened to my answers. Because that's who Sarah is. Even after everything, even after all the pain I caused her, she's kind, she's good. She's the same woman I fell in love with 45 years ago, just happier now. Happier without me than she ever was with me. At the end of dinner, after we'd split the tiramisu and finished our coffee, I asked her something I'd been wanting to ask for years. I said, "Do you think we ever had a chance? If I'd done something different, if I'd woken up sooner, could we have made it?" She was quiet for a long time, looked out the window at the street, at the people walking past living their lives. Then she looked back at me, and her eyes were sad but clear. She said, "Mark, there were 1,000 moments, 1,000 chances, maybe more. I tried so hard to reach you. I tried so many different ways, but you were never really there. You were always somewhere else, always thinking about something else, always choosing something else." She paused, took a breath, then she said something I'll never forget, something that carved itself into my heart. "I know you loved me. I never doubted that you loved me, but you didn't love us. You didn't protect what we had. You took it for granted. You thought it would always be there, that I would always be there, no matter what you did or didn't do. And love without protection just withers. It dies. No matter how much you loved me, without protection, without attention, without daily choice, it wasn't enough." She's right. She's absolutely right. So here's what I need you to do. Not tomorrow, not next week, not when things calm down at work, right now, today, this moment. Put down this phone or close this laptop. Get up from wherever you're sitting. Go find your spouse. Right now, I don't care if they're in the shower or on a work call or busy with something. Find them. Look at them. Actually look at them. See them. Really see them. Notice their face, their eyes, the way they move, the way they exist in the world. And then ask them a real question. Not, "What do you want for dinner?" or "Did you pay that bill?" A real question. What's been on your heart lately? How are you really doing? What do you need from me that you're not getting? How can I love you better? Ask and then listen. Really listen. With your whole attention. With your phone face down and out of reach. With your body turned toward them and your eyes on their face. Touch them. Touch their face, their hand, their shoulder. Some part of them that reminds both of you that you're real to each other, that you're present, that you're here. And then tomorrow, do it again. And the day after that. And the day after that. Not because your marriage is in trouble. Not because there's a crisis. But because your marriage is precious. Because it's fragile. Because it needs protection and you're the only one who can provide it. Because someday, and that someday comes faster than you think, trust me, it'll be too late. Stop assuming they know you love them. Stop assuming everything's fine. Stop putting your marriage at the bottom of your priority list. Stop choosing your phone, your work, your distractions, your comfort, your laziness over the person who chose to spend their life with you. Protect what you have before it's too late. Before you're 79 and alone, watching your ex-wife be happy with someone else because they're doing what you should have done all along. Before you're sitting at a dinner table trying to make sense of where it all went wrong. Before you're lying awake at 3 a.m. replaying every moment you chose wrong, every time you picked up your phone, every opportunity to connect that you missed. I loved my wife, I still do. I'll love her until the day I die. But I didn't protect our marriage. I didn't tend to it. I didn't fight for it. I took it for granted and it died. And now it's gone. Now she's gone. Now I'm here, alone, with nothing but regret and the knowledge that I destroyed the best thing in my life through negligence. Don't let this be your story. Don't let complacency steal what matters most. Don't spend your old age drowning in regret like I am. The marriage you save will be your own. If this resonates with you, if this scares you, if this makes you uncomfortable, share this video. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Comment below and tell me one thing you're going to do differently today. One small way you're going to protect your marriage. One moment where you're going to choose presence over distraction. And subscribe, because I've got more hard truths to share. More mistakes I made that you don't have to make. More lessons I learned too late that you can learn in time.